Morning.
Morning, Pastor.
Praise God for today. We're here. Are you glad you're here? You know, every day you encounter many different kinds of people. Right? Yeah. We encounter some are very delightful, some are very difficult, some of them are inspiring, some of them are irritating, fascinating, intimidating. The fact is, a lot of the problems we have in life are because of personality conflicts. We don't get along with people. When your relationships are bad, life stinks. Life is miserable. You may have lots of money and have many opportunities, but if your relationships are bad, you're miserable. It's very important that we learn how to get along with other people and with one another. Now, James gives some practical advice. Today, we're going to look at what he says about how do we relate wisely to others, to other people. Now, verse 18 is the key verse. It says, "And those who are peacemakers will plant seeds of peace and reap a harvest of goodness." James says, every day in every relationship, you're planting seeds. What kind of seeds? Seeds of anger, jealousy, peace, confidence, insecurity, and many different kinds of seeds. So you will inevitably reap in your relationships. How can I plant seeds of peace? How can I be a peacemaker? How can I have a peaceful relationships? The answer is wisdom. We need to learn how to be wise in the way we act toward people. Often we treat people in very foolish ways and we provoke the exact opposite behavior of what we would normally like to see in them. Common sense is not so common. A lot of smart people are not too wise. They may be educated, but they don't have wisdom. They may have all kinds of degrees, but they're washed out with relationships. James, in this passage, does three things. He defines real wisdom. Secondly, then he shows how it differs from human wisdom. Then he details how it operates. The first thing he says in verse 13 is that wisdom is a lifestyle. Yeah. It has nothing to do with your intelligence. It has nothing to do with what you have in your life. It has everything to do with your relationships and your character. He says, "Who is wise and understanding among you? Let him show it by his good life, by deeds done in humility that comes from wisdom." Imagine James coming to BIBC and asking, "May I see the hands of those who are wise?" Now, if you're dumb enough to raise your hand, you would say, "Prove it. Show it to me. Show me your wisdom by your character, by your lifestyle." So it's not a matter of what you say with your lips, but a matter of what you live with your life. Not a matter of words, but of your works. Not so much with the diplomas on the wall, but your disposition that really shows how wise you are. How do you get along with other people? That shows how wise you really are. It's a lifestyle. Now, wisdom has more to do with character in relationship than it has to do with education and intelligence. Wisdom creates humility. Knowledge causes pride. Wisdom causes humility. Verses 14 to 16, James says, lack of wisdom causes problems. All kinds of problems. Verse 14 says, if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your heart, don't boast about it and deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, even of the devil. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. Lack of wisdom causes all kinds of disorder and problems and chaos and confusion. Do you have confusion in your home? Do you have chaos in your work? Is your life a mess? If you can get all together, you lack wisdom. It causes all kinds of problems in our lives. Now the question is, how can I know I'm wise in how I relate toward people? Today, we're going to take a wisdom test. We're going to test your wisdom. See how wise you really are. James, in verse 17, lists the characteristics of wise people. Let's read verse 17. It says, but wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then is loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. So how do we relate wisely to others? Number one, if I'm wise, I will not compromise my integrity. Because it says the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure. Pure means uncorrupted, authentic. In 1 John 3:3, this word is used to refer to Christ's character, integrity. If I'm really genuine, if I'm wise, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to cheat you. I'm not going to manipulate you, and I'm not going to be deceitful. I'll be a person of integrity. Because all relationships are built on trust and respect. It is built on trust and respect. If you don't have honesty, who will trust you? If you don't have honesty, who will respect you? You have to have integrity in your life. Dr. Leonard Keeler, the man who invented the lie detector, tested 25,000 people and came to the conclusion that people are basically dishonest. Can you believe that? There are two books of wisdom in the Bible. James in the New Testament and Proverbs in the Old. They both talk about wisdom. Proverbs 10:9 says, the man of integrity walks securely. He's not afraid of being found out because he doesn't say one thing to one group and another to another group. Someone said, no man has good enough memory to be a habitual liar. Eventually, you're going to slip up. If you got integrity, you got confidence, you walk securely in your relationship because you don't have anything to hide. You know you're not putting people on. If I'm wise, I will not compromise my integrity. Secondly, if I'm wise, I will not antagonize your anger. I will not make you angry. I won't make you angry. Wise people work at maintaining harmony. They are not always looking for a fight. Because it says wisdom is peace-loving. Have you ever met someone who is always arguing, always looking for a fight? There's a guy who was so argumentative that he would only eat food that disagreed with him. I don't know if that's true. If you're smart, you don't antagonize people's anger. Proverbs 20 verse 3 says, any fool can start arguments. The wise thing is to stay out of them. Now, what causes arguments? Do you know? If you're wise, you know, because then you can avoid them. Three things that cause arguments. If you're wise, you'll avoid this. Number one, comparing. You're just like, why can't you be like so and so? When I was your age, we're doing that, you're asking for a fight. Or you maybe will say, my first husband, if you're, the second husband. But 2 Corinthians 10:12 says, it's unwise to compare. Secondly, condemning. It's all your fault. You should be ashamed. You lay on the guilt. That's what you're doing. You're doing that. You always, you never, you ought to, you should, you shouldn't. Someone said, you can bury a marriage with a lot of little things. You get that? Thirdly, contradicting. How do you like to be interrupted in the middle of a sentence? It's irritating. James says, if you're wise, you don't sweat the small stuff. William James says, the secret of wisdom is knowing what to overlook. Some things are just not worth the fight. Hindi maliit na bagay lang in Tagalog. You're so worried. Wisdom is peace-loving. Peace-loving. So if I'm smart, if I'm wise, I need to be peace-loving. I won't compromise my integrity. I won't antagonize your anger. Proverbs 14:29 says, a wise man controls his temper. He knows that anger causes mistakes. How many of you have ever done something stupid in anger? Oh, good. Nobody does. Anger causes mistakes, right? Yeah. Because you don't think. You just follow your feelings. Okay? So, let's be wise. Then number 3, if I'm wise, I won't minimize your feelings. Because it says, wisdom is considerate. Okay? Or in the good news, gentle. In Living Bible, courteous. And considerate means mindful of the feelings of others. Now, there is a common mistake that if I don't feel the way you feel, then your feeling must be invalid or illogical or irrational or silly. James says, wise people are considerate. They don't minimize other people's feelings. So if I'm wise, I will not minimize your feelings. I don't have to accept them, but I can understand them. Proverbs 15:4 says, kind words bring life, but cruel words crush your spirit. Typically, when we react to people's emotions, we say things that hurt. Often, we belittle the feeling. We put people down or we play psychologists. I know why you feel that way. We're being inconsiderate of the feeling of others. We are condescending toward people. James says, if I'm wise in relationships, I will not minimize your feelings. I'll be considerate. You ever played the game, my day can beat your day? My husband comes home worn out and starts complaining. The traffic was bad. My boss got upset. The air conditioning went out. Wife says, oh yeah? Junior died the cat down the toilet. The beans burned. You know what? The fact is that they both had a tough day. Wisdom is considerate. Allow your spouse to be tired without having to say, I'm more tired than you are. Okay. The fact is, you're both tired. If you care, you'll be aware. Fourthly, how to relate with others, wisely to others. If I'm wise, I won't criticize your decisions, suggestions. A wise person can learn from anybody. Sure? Yeah. He's not defensive. He's open to reason. He's not stubborn. He's willing to listen and learn. Because wisdom is submissive. In the Greek it says, eupilotes. Okay? Now the word is used in the New Testament only once. Okay? It doesn't really mean submissive. It really means reasonable, willing to listen, willingly listen to open to ideas and suggestions. Now the Revised Standard Version says open to reason. The Living Bible says it allows discussion. So that's wisdom. It's submissive. Now the question is, brothers and sisters, are you a reasonable person? Can your kids reason with you? Kids, can your parents reason with you? The Bible says if you're wise, you're reasonable. You're open to suggestions. Don't say, don't confuse me with facts that I made up my mind. When I want your opinion, I'll ask for it. Don't be like that. Because a wise person does not antagonize your anger, does not minimize your feeling, does not criticize your suggestions. So don't be defensive. Most of us are too sensitive. If somebody makes a suggestion, we take it so personal. It's like a personal criticism and we're defensive. James says, that's not right. A wise person can learn from anybody. If you're wise, you'll be open to suggestions. Don't criticize, don't get defensive. As Proverbs 12:15 says, a fool thinks he needs no advice. A wise man listens to others. If it's true, listen and learn from it. If it's false, ignore it and forget it. If I'm wise, I'll be open to reason. I won't criticize your suggestions. I will listen to them. Fifthly, if I'm wise, I won't emphasize your mistakes. Because it says, wisdom is full of mercy and good fruit. Now, do you jump on people every time they blunder, every time they commit mistake or make a fault? You always use everybody in your family as the butt of your jokes? Wisdom is full of mercy. I won't emphasize your mistakes. Do you ever let go of people? Do you ever let people go? Or do you keep holding them about their past mistakes? Do you hold them in leverage and they can never be set free, even if they have asked forgiveness? Remember the time that you did? No. You're always holding on and bringing up the past for leverage. That's not good. Because if I'm wise, I won't emphasize your mistake. I'll be full of mercy. I'll give you what you need, not what you deserve. That's grace. There are two guys at a convention with their wives. They were long lost friends. They sat in the lobby all night talking. They knew they would be in trouble with their wives. They went back to their rooms. The next day, they happened to see each other. What did your wife think? I walked in the door and my wife got hysterical. Don't you mean hysterical? No, historical. She told me everything I ever did wrong. If I'm wise, I won't emphasize your mistakes. Proverbs 17:9 says, love forgets mistakes. Nagging about them parts the best of friends. If you're wise, you don't rub it in, you rub it out. You forget it. When somebody stumbles, you don't judge them. You encourage them. We don't need judgment. We need encouragement when we stumble. Okay? Are you that way at home? If somebody forgets something, forgets to fill the car with gas and you run out in the highway, somebody forgets their lunchbox or something, how are you? How do you react? You rub it in or do you rub it out? The wise thing is to not emphasize the mistake. Because it says, wisdom is full of mercy and good fruit. What is good fruit? Good fruit is kind actions. It's something you do. You don't just show sympathy. You don't just say, I feel for you. You brought it off to yourself. You do something about it. You take action. It's a kindness. It's being a doer of the word. James 2:12 says, mercy triumphs over judgment. Mercy is greater principle than judging. James says, if I'm wise, I won't emphasize your mistakes. I won't criticize your suggestions. I won't minimize your feelings. I won't antagonize your anger. And lastly, you want to relate wisely with others. I won't disguise my own weaknesses. A mark of a wise person is that they don't try to hide and disguise their own weaknesses. Because it says, wisdom is impartial and sincere. Now these two words in Greek sound similar. Adiakritos and adipokritos. They sound like hypocrite. And that's where we got the word in English. It means straightforward and without hypocrisy. You know, in the Greek theater, they often would have just couple or three actors playing an entire play. These people would change parts. They will hold masks in front of their faces. One person would have 5 or 6 different masks and parts, and that person, that actor, was called a hypocrite. They have all kinds of masks. James says, if you're smart and wise, you're not a pony. You don't wear a mask and try to be something you're not. If you're perfect, this is not the church for you. If you're going to wear a mask, this isn't the church for you. This is for real people, with real sins, with real hang-ups, real hopes, real emotional problems, real family problems. Real wise people are honest and open. They're not phony. They're genuine. They're real and authentic. What you see is what you get with a really wise person. They don't attain or pretend perfection. If I'm wise, I'm not going to disguise my weaknesses. There are so many phony relationships today. People try to be something they are not. Proverbs 20:13 says, you will never succeed in life if you try to hide your sins. So it's dumb to pretend that you're perfect. If you've got it all together, because nobody does. Nobody does. When you start telling people what your weaknesses are, they're not going to be shocked because they know it already. Everybody knows your weakness. You're the only one who won't admit it. We see each other's weaknesses all the time. Why do we walk around pretending that we don't know? We do. It's obvious to everybody. But the thing is, we don't want to admit it. So if I'm wise, I won't disguise my weaknesses. People appreciate honesty, being gut level and sharing what they are. It also helps them to be more open. They might be struggling with it too. So, brothers and sisters, how do you rate on the wisdom test? Do you compromise your integrity? Do you use people, manipulate them, and use them for the things you want? Do you tend to antagonize anger, always saying things that tick people off? You know, if you say it, it will press the hot button. But what you do is you say it anyway. James says that's not right. It's not being wise. If I'm wise, I will not antagonize your anger. If I'm wise, I will not minimize your feelings. Feelings are neither right nor wrong. They're just feelings. So when my wife has a feeling, it's valid. Whether it's logical, whether it makes sense, the fact is she feels it. If I'm wise, I'm not going to minimize that. If I'm wise, I won't criticize your suggestions. Can your kid make suggestions to you? Can your husband make suggestions to you? Or your wife? If I'm wise, I won't emphasize your mistakes. I don't rub it in. I rub it out. If I'm wise, I don't try to disguise my feelings. So how do I get wisdom? How do I become one of those wise people in relationships so that I have the peace that everybody is talking about? Do I need to make a New Year's resolution? Today I'm going to be wise. No. This is the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge comes from education. Wisdom comes from God. To get knowledge, you look around. To get wisdom, you look up. Knowledge comes from reason. Wisdom comes from revelation. Knowledge is something you learn. Wisdom is a gift. James 1:5 says, it's not there. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God. Wisdom is a gift from God. We need to ask God every day, God, give me wisdom. I want to be wise more than anything else. If I'm loving, I'm wise. I'm going to make it in life. If you're not loving, then you will fail. Because you're not wise. If you're loving and wise, you're going to make it in life. The verse says, ask God who gives generously. Because God loves to give. So, the secret, according to Colossians 2:3, is Christ Himself. In Him lie hidden all God's treasures of wisdom. So it's all wrapped in a person, Jesus Christ. If you want God's wisdom in your life, get Jesus in your life. Invite Him in your life. Let Him come into your life and say, Christ, think your thoughts through my mind and say your words through my mouth. Help people through my hands. Love people with my heart. And put your wisdom in my mind. The wisest thing I ever did was that when I gave my life to Jesus. That's where wisdom comes from. When you get God's wisdom in your life, day by day, as you allow Him to enter into your life and develop your character, you'll find your relationships getting better and better. Even if the person on the other end isn't making an improvement, they'll get better because you're getting better. You know how to relate wisely instead of stupidly to people. So how wise are you? Where do you need wisdom? Do you need wisdom in your marriage? Do you need wisdom with your kids? Do you need wisdom at work? How to relate to people? It's all wrapped up in Jesus Christ. So the first step is to invite Him into your life. Wisdom begins with knowing God. Psalm 111 verse 10 says, here it is. Reverence for the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. It starts with salvation. So, we need to ask Him into our lives if we haven't done that. If we do that, then day by day, as you ask Him for wisdom, God will provide the wisdom that you need. The Bible says, as iron sharpens iron, a wise friend sharpens another friend. So let's have fellowship with fellow Christians who are wise. A man is wise by the company he keeps. Read God's Word. All of God's wisdom is in His Word. The more you read God's Word, the wiser you will be. as a child. Let's pray.